If you have an early detection, I mean, it's a 99% 5-year survival rate. So why are 60% not? All the studies have shown the same thing. It's access. So they report time off from work, difficulty scheduling, concerns about cost, past mammogram experiences. And I did, and you found an early cancer and you saved my life. This is, to me, the most exciting thing about our company and the future of where we're going and the future of this.
Welcome to the Entrepreneur's Logbook podcast. I'm your host, Zachary Bernard. You can find me on social at It's Zachby. In each episodes, I bring on experts from various industries for you to learn about their strategies and insights driving extraordinary business growth. The Entrepreneur's Logbook podcast is sponsored by WeFuturePR, where we're dedicated to helping entrepreneurs build their thought leadership and business by getting them on podcasts and launching their own podcasts. Today, we're joined by Dr. Ryan Polselli, founder and CEO of Mammolink, a fully reimagined mobile breast imaging platform that's become one of the fastest growing breast cancer screening companies in Florida. Dr. Ryan is a fellowship-trained breast radiologist from Emory University and U.S. Navy veteran who served in the Navy's nuclear power program for nuclear-powered submarines and surface warfare ships. After years in the traditional hospital system, he walked away to rebuild the breast cancer screening from the ground up. He bootstrapped Mammolink from scratch, and in just 3 years, he took it to a team of 90, completing over 55,000 tests across 5 mobile units, earning a perfect, and I mean perfect, 5.0 star rating across 1,900 reviews and delivering tens of millions in cost saving to organization. And today, his company works with companies like Walmart, Amazon, Costco, and the Royal Caribbeans. And he's also pioneered RAIN, Mammolink's trademark AI system for same-day screening ultrasound for women with dense breast tissue. Ryan, it's great to have you on the show. Welcome aboard.
Hey, thanks, Zach. Pleasure to be here.
Thank you so much for joining us, son. Ryan, as this is a business entrepreneurship podcast, what I always like to ask anyone that comes on the show is, if you had to rebuild your company from scratch, knowing everything that you know today, what's kind of the one thing that you think you would do differently that you feel a lot of entrepreneurs or business owners get like totally wrong?
I would probably, I think, emphasize more on the team. I think put in simplest words, fire fast when needed.
Yeah.
I think, it probably put me back at least 6 months to a year had I actually taken my own advice there. And I think that's just kind of the normal thing to do is we all want to see the best for the best. But at the end of the day, it's a team. And if you want to win the national championship, you're going to have the best team. And so, there are a lot of good people that mean well and have great hearts, but maybe not the most talented. And if you want to win, you got to have the most talented people in place. And so, unfortunately, hard decisions like that have to be made. And I think that's the one thing I would have done differently. And the one thing I wouldn't compromise in now or in the future, for sure.
Yeah. And I feel like as founders, entrepreneurs, everyone goes through that. Like you will go through the learning experience that you will hire some people. They're not going to be the best fit. You're going to learn from those mistakes, hire better people to come on your team. And then you get that like rebranded team that knows how to do things correctly.
Yeah, you can relate, I'm sure. Yeah, exactly.
Oh, yeah.
100%. And that's been the hardest thing for me
Yeah.
in this whole process.
I think what's the saying? Like hire fast, fire even faster until you get like the correct team fits and everything like that.
There's another one too I like. When there is a doubt, there is no doubt. And I've used that one. I think it comes from like a TV show or a movie or something, Ronin or something. But I apply it to employees because there's a lot of times like, is it? And never fails. 6 months later, you're like, I should have made the decision 6 months ago.
Yeah, it's always your gut feeling in my experience.
Absolutely.
That comes 100%. Out here.
Yeah.
I love that. And just going back to Mammolink, I would love to like start from like the foundation that you've built. Could you like walk me through like how the company actually works when an organization, school district, they come to you to like, hey, we want to bring breast cancer screening on site. What does that process like kind of look like?
Yeah. So I think the best thing to do is, everybody says, oh, you're a mobile mammal company. And, we're not, I shouldn't say we're not a mobile mammal company, but I would say we're not just a mobile mammal company. Essentially what we are is a patient-centric company. And I think you can't be in breast imaging today not have a mobile component and say you're completely patient-centric, because it's such an important piece of the whole patient model that you're focusing on, to actually
Mhm.
give them access. So basically, our entire company focuses on that. What we
Yeah.
can do every single day to make sure that the process is completely patient-centric. So from the
Mhm.
bus drivers all the way up to like the C-suite, I mean, everything is basically focused around the question. So like we do some thought experiments, and we've actually questioned patients, and you know, there's a lot of actual real data too. But you know, basically say, take a patient and ask them, okay, if this was a 5-star experience, how could it be a 6 or a 7-star? Like, what would you want to be a perfect experience? And they'll answer stuff like, well, okay, I want you to show up at my work, get me out of
Mhm.
work for 15 to 30 minutes, give me a cup of coffee, make it smell good, don't hurt me, guarantee me that you're not going to reach into my pocketbook,
Mhm.
don't make me come back for additional tests. And oh, by the way, make it all on my phone with a few taps, make it very convenient, and then give me my results by the end of the day before I go to bed. And so
Yeah.
and so that's our starting point. And then literally
Mhm.
everything we do every day is around that. So then we say, okay, well, if we need to get into a corporation to bring it, how do we do that? So we have a team of, you know, partner relations specialists that work on, you know, the human resources departments, and they know what they need to bring it to them, all the way down to like the drivers of the bus, because that's the first person that the patient sees. So we have, you know,
Mhm.
nonstop training with them about, you know, how to approach patients, how to understand patients' fear, you know, the whole psychology.
Mhm.
And basically every day is something along those lines.
Yeah. I love
Yeah.
that. And I can see that you have that patient-centric approach, like as you described it here. Just so even like the bus
Yeah.
driver, like the first person they're seeing, you want to make sure they get a good experience with that. And I know like once we spoke before and you were talking about like the reviews and everything, like people were so like, I mean, I looked at some of the reviews. I was like, that's interesting. Like most company, you'll scroll down, like you'll see like a couple like bad reviews, bad experience. I tried finding one, and I'm not trying to like promote you or anything like that, be biased, but I couldn't
Yeah.
find one. And I thought that was
Yeah.
really like hilarious and like funny. So
Yeah, yeah, I'm super proud of that, and it's amazing, and I actually surprised myself. I didn't expect them
yeah.
to be as good as they are, but and
Mhm.
I don't know. I mean, I think the bar is set pretty low, though. I think people are
Mhm.
patients, at least in breast imaging world. They're used to waiting 2, 3 weeks. They're used
Oh
to
yeah.
the run around, the interview, and so if you just do your job right, all of a sudden everybody's like, "Oh my gosh, this is amazing," you know. So I think we're riding that wave a little bit, but you know, I hope it continues. And yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I,
Just
I
doing
was
good
even
work.
surprised.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Doing
yeah,
good
yeah.
work in the end, like
Yeah,
works really well, essentially.
yeah. Like Warren Buffett once said, I think he said, you know, wow the patient, or like wow the customer, or delight them,
Mhm.
I think was his words, you know, and
Yeah.
not just make them happy, but truly delight them. And that's what we try to do. And I think that's a winning, you know, a winning approach, no matter what business you're in.
Yeah. I think that's a pretty good philosophy, in my
Yeah.
opinion, here. And
Yeah.
one of the things that I'd be interested to touch on here, because when we're thinking about like healthcare, there's always a question on like access. And even if you have access, it doesn't always equal utilization. A lot of organizations are going to
Yes.
assume like because their employees, they have insurance, there's imaging centers like nearby, that problem is solved. Like they'll just go, like they'll get taken care of. But what's going to happen here? Because I know like based on your experience, that's not kind of like what happens. Like what kind of changes
No.
when you bring that to them directly?
No, and you hit the nail right on the head. And I think medicine even misses this point drastically, themselves. And I mean, that's our whole goal, right? Is to help
Mhm.
patients. But you're right. Access does not equal utilization, and we hear it all the time. You know, like I think recently we approached a school district. Hey, would you like us to come and screen? No, they have insurance and they can go to their own imaging facility. But here's the
Yeah.
reality. Um, you know, number one, cancer. I mean, you know, for women, it's the second leading cause of death by cancer. So first you have heart disease, right? And, you know, that's the big one that everybody needs to, the women too, the men and women. You have cancer deaths. And of course, lung cancer is slightly ahead of breast cancer for women, but they're neck and neck. And it's a huge cause of early mortality. So, I mean, it's a big problem.
Mhm.
And so, you know, just saying, well, you can go and do it isn't enough, because here's what the data shows. So, I mean, it's hard to get complete data, but we have some studies, some coming from the government, that basically show that if you look at women who haven't had a mammogram in 2 years, it's at least 30%.
Hmm.
I think it's higher actually. And then if you look
Yeah.
at women who haven't had an annual screening mammogram, it's 60%. So over half of patients are not getting the test that can
Yeah.
actually help them. And if they get the test, we know this too. So, I mean, it's very effective. So early detection, if you have an early detection, I mean, it's a 99% 5-year survival rate. I mean, that's awesome. And then, and there are other studies show that like, if you have 1,000 women and you screen them, you're adding 230 life years to that group of patients.
Wow.
So, you know, it's really a no brainer to do it. So why are 60% not? And that's where we come in, because if you ask them, you poll them, all the studies have shown the same thing. It's access. So they report time off from work, difficulty scheduling, concerns about cost, past
Hmm.
mammogram experiences. You know, all of these things are the barriers. And so basically, if you eliminate those, you'll see better results. And that's what we're seeing. So, I mean, you know,
Yeah.
we'll go into, you know, a large group where their compliance rate is 30%. And after 1 year, it's up to 60%.
Mm.
And so, I mean, and that's tremendous. I mean, you know, and, you know, those are the numbers, but here's the actual stories. Like you'll hear women, and I hear this almost like once a month. They'll say, you know, the only reason I got on is because my coworkers were saying, come on, Brenda, get on the bus with me, whatever. And I did. And you found an early cancer and you saved my life. And so, I mean, you know,
Yeah.
it's very rewarding. And, but you're right. Access does not equal utilization. That's the biggest problem, in my opinion, in the whole field.
Hmm.
I think you're a little bit of a hypocrite if you're in medicine and you're not addressing it. I don't
Yeah.
think you can say, get your screening and make it incredibly difficult without having a little bit of hypocrisy. So,
Yeah.
that's my soapbox. You know, but you really that's a really good question, because it hits the nail right on the head, and that's the
Yeah, because I mean, like with like the traditional healthcare system, you talked about that earlier, but it can take like weeks, maybe even
yeah,
like months sometimes, depending on like the queue and everything like that that's going
yes,
on. But for like a lot of like these women, just that stress, like waiting for
yeah,
the results, like that definitely takes like a big toll on them, like waiting for that. I mean, I remember my mother, I mean, I'm in Canada, it's a bit different from your system, but I remember her waiting for that. It took like forever. I don't even remember when she got it. But one of the
yeah,
things I thought was interesting is you have some of this like same day results, which I don't think you hear that too often when it comes to like the healthcare system. Typically, it's like, yeah, we'll get your results in a couple of weeks. We'll give you a call when we get them. And then there's like this anxiety that creeps in, like, oh, like what's gonna happen? Like, when am I getting these results? And it takes like a while. And there's like that dreaded callback to like, okay, like maybe I don't want them to like call back. And what I'd love to understand, like, what kind of impact does eliminating that waiting period have, both on the patient side, but also from a clinical outcome perspective? Because that's a big one.
yeah. You're in my head. So definitely, um, I think that's it speaks to a bigger thing, which is patient control. So I think, you know, we're giving patients control. I think a
Mhm.
lot of the traditional system has stripped control away and said, you'll get them when you get them. Follow up with your doctor in 2 to 3 weeks. We're the ones in control. So first, it eliminates patient anxiety, right? I mean,
Yeah.
so everybody always complains, or at least I always hear the patients say, I couldn't sleep until I got my results because I was worried. And I get that, you know, in male, you know, we have our own cancer screening stuff. But that's the obvious one, getting it within, you know, by the end of the day, so you don't have to go to sleep worried about it. But I think the bigger thing is the message that we're sending to patients by delaying it 2 to 3 weeks, or, you know, even a few days. Really, you're basically saying, it's not that important.
Yeah.
You're not that important. You know, and so that hidden message is huge. And then I think there's one other thing too that I like to think about, and that is that when you're giving patients control, you're giving them immediate access, you're encouraging better behavior and compliance in the future. They're more, you know, patients are, we all have this consumer psychology today where it's like
Yeah.
Amazon. I would not order for Amazon if everything took 2 weeks. And I love it when I order for Amazon. It's like, it'll be here later the same day. I mean, it's amazing. So, and that
Yeah.
encourages me to go back and keep using the system because it's there when I need it. And so if we can give that to patients, kind of a retail medicine, and patients, you know, will respond positively. And then next year when you're there, like, you know what? I got my results. I feel good. I know what the expectation is, and they're more likely to get back on. And so I think, and so that's what we see too, is every
Mhm.
year that we go back, we see like that 10%. But yeah, that's a
Yeah.
huge deal. The same, I mean, it's logistically, I mean, it's not impossible. It's hard, but you know, you just really have to, you know, make it a priority, and it can happen.
Yeah. And I think just by taking that patient-centric approach that you have, you're able to create a very good patient experience where they come, they have a great experience, like, okay, that was like very easy to do. And then for like the next year, as you mentioned, you see like an increase in growth in people who actually go take that test. So it's more repetitive. You end up just being able to maybe catch cancer earlier when they actually come back. And it's a win-win for everyone. But if you look at the traditional healthcare system, you go for 2, 3 weeks, you wait forever. It's like, yeah, it was a very stressful experience. Like I was anxious for like literally like 2, 3 weeks before I got my result. Maybe the next time you're like, it's not that much of a big deal. Maybe I don't want to go through that again. But if
Yes.
it's a good experience, we want that again. It's like the
Yeah.
example you mentioned from Amazon. If I order something from China, it takes 4 weeks. I'm not going to do it again. If I order from Amazon, I get it in a day. I'm going to keep using Amazon. It's like the same
Absolutely.
concept. So that was a
Yeah.
really good example. I love that.
Yeah. And then too, to add on to this, the whole process is a lifetime process. It's not just you get screened once at 40. Women
Mhm.
have to go every single year for the whole life. So
Yeah.
that's how we're looking at it, is like we're looking at it as a 40-year process. So I tell all the techs on the bus, I was like, the most important thing about your mammogram today is, did you create an experience where they'll come back next year?
Hmm.
So that, and then they forget that because they're like, oh, I have to compress hard, or I have to, make sure the picture quality. And sometimes it's a harassing issue. And I'm like, you know what? A little bit of sacrifice. Let's be moderate. Let's be a little lighter on the compression, and then they come back. The overall good that you've done for the system is significantly greater than worrying about on that
Yeah.
mammogram. And I know I'll probably take some heat for that perspective from the medical community, but I stand
Yeah.
by it. Yeah.
No. And I wanted to come back to something that you said earlier. You mentioned that a lot of people, before they go take that test, they have like a lot of different like questions, like, okay, like how long is this going to take, results and everything. But another thing you mentioned is like what's the cost? Like, what is that going to cost me? And I thought that was interesting. I was doing a bit of research, and your model is a bit unique, as in for the patient, it's not technically costing them anything because it's someone like going
Correct.
through insurance, as far as I could understand. And I'd love to understand that like a little bit more for the audience here.
Yeah. So, I mean, one of the things that the government, in my opinion, has done good is that they've required that, at least for breast cancer screening, that the insurance companies can't require a copay. So it encourages participation, and that comes back to all parties: win, win, win. Patient
Hmm.
wins, society wins, insurance companies win because they're getting screened, which saves them long-term, downterm costs, and it's fantastic. And so a lot of patients don't even know that, though, that there is no cost to it if you have insurance.
Hmm.
I'll talk about the uninsured population next, but um, and so that's really one of the things that I think we're stressing, is that, and the cost is a big thing. A lot of patients will be like, I don't want to go because if you give me a bill, I don't want my credit to tank. I don't, and so we eliminate that. We have a guarantee. You're not going to have a surprise bill. Now fraud, that's another thing, but I'm talking your average everyday person.
Hmm.
Um, and the next thing we're tackling is, and this is really hot right now politically, and socially, is there's a couple of bills being passed at the federal level and also at the state level for mandates for insurance to cover supplemental screening. So if you are called back for an additional test, or you have dense breast tissue and you need an ultrasound, they're saying, we're not going to charge you the copays for that either. I think that's another win. I still think it's cost beneficial. There's probably a little bit of pushback somewhere from the insurance companies on that. Um, but I don't think there's going to be much. And it's a wave that's sweeping the nation. There's 30 out of 50 states that have passed some form of legislation now. There's a big bill. I think it's the ABCD Act or something,
Hmm.
in Congress at the federal level right now that they're trying to pass. But in overall society and everybody. I mean, these are mothers,
Yeah.
they have children and stuff like that, and breast cancer is affecting younger and younger people. So, and then, we're getting very lucky that donations are pouring in for this to be able to take care of those patients that don't. I mean, it's a relatively inexpensive test. It's so beneficial.
I love that. And one thing I'd love to touch on is, I mean, you're someone operating at a like a very interesting like intersection, like medicine, business, technology, and like policy. From your point, as like with like your company, with all like the unique data that you're collecting, what are you kind of able to see or answer that
Yes.
these traditional hospital-based system imaging centers like simply can't? Because I'd really
Yep.
love to hear that here.
This is to me the most exciting thing about our company and the future of where we're going. So yeah, we have a very unique viewpoint. You know, in the way that we're observing patients. So we're observing them in their natural environment. So like, for example, let's say you wanted to observe rhinoceros behavior or whatever. You don't go look at them in the zoo, right? You want to observe them in their natural environment with a camera far away, not disturbing their behavior, to really understand how they work, right? What their
Mhm.
psychology is, their biology, their behaviors, that kind of thing. And I think the same thing is true with patients. Um, and so once they go into the hospital system, it is such an artificial, it's like a zoo to the human being. You're not going
Mhm.
to know exactly how they act, what they think. Everything is so disturbed. And it's unfortunately a system that's been built for many successful reasons over years, but it's kind of just a legacy system, but it doesn't apply to the lives of modern day patients. And so once they're in that system, your data is skewed to begin with, in my opinion. So we're looking at them naturally. So, and I like to say, we're observing four things: biology, behavior, access, and outcomes. That's a unique data set
Mhm.
that anybody has, really. I think that anybody's going to have. So we're compiling all this data, which is really good, proprietary, unbiased data. And then, of course, I won't go into it, but we're using it to in the cloud with AI on top and stuff. So we have like natural language queries of our data to answer questions that have never been answered before, such as what does the actual life expectancy, or what is the actual change in life expectancy when you observe, or when a patient goes from annual screening to screening at 18, let's say 24 to 36 months? How does
Yeah.
that actually affect it? Questions that we've never been able to answer before, which are now possible due to AI and the data and stuff. So I'm hopeful that we'll be able to introduce a whole nother layer of behavior and things to this whole screening process in the future. Yeah, that's just I could go on all day about this,
Yeah.
Zach.
I
Um,
can see
and,
you're
but I'll,
very
I'll leave
like
it there.
excited.
I'll leave it there. Yeah, yeah, yeah. This is my favorite thing to talk about because, and I
Yeah.
think we're going to be able to answer stuff that even researchers in the field haven't been able to do yet because of the data. I mean, so
Mhm.
that's the thing is the more data you have and the better and the cleaner it is, the more you can have these breakthroughs. And that's the problem with, a lot of research is you have very limited data, very small data sets. And so hopefully we'll make some nice breakthroughs.
I'm sure you will. You're going to be
Yeah.
collecting more data. You're going to be helping to get some more breakthrough. And it's going to be, I mean, I
Yeah.
can see
Yeah.
that you're
Yeah.
very
Yeah.
passionate about that. So I
Yeah. Yeah.
always
Yeah.
love to
That's
see that. But
my number one interest right now.
I love that. Well,
Yeah.
Ryan, thank you so much for joining
Yeah.
us on the podcast
Yeah.
here. And for
Thank you very
anyone that
much,
wants to
Zach.
get in touch with you, because I know you have the website, you have the LinkedIn, anywhere specific that people should be heading over if they want to reach out, get in touch with you, or anything like that.
I mean, I am on LinkedIn, easy to find, Ryan Polselli, Polselli. It's also my email, so you can be ryan.polselli@mammolink.com. And I'm pretty much anywhere you can get a hold of me.
Fair enough. Perfect. So, to your listeners, if you've enjoyed this episode, do not forget to subscribe to the podcast, leave a like, comment, review, and everything like that. Also, you can find more insights at refuture.com. And until then, keep pushing, and we'll see you in the next one.